And good evening, everyone. This is the Rooftop Sports. And also, we got Jay Trident Podcast. And also, we have a very special guest ourselves. We are joined by former Mariners pitcher and Expos, Jeff Fassero, who is here today. And Jeff, thank you very much for joining us. And Mr. Fassero, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to be with you guys. Talk Mariner baseball, just talk baseball a little before the season's getting ready to kick off here probably about 2 weeks for spring training, I guess.
Oh, yes, and it's something that we're all waiting for. We're just getting through this football season, and after that, then we can talk about how excited we will be about baseball. And before we get started, please hit that like button, subscribe, hit notification, including also for Mr. J Trident Podcast. Now, I'm going to give you a quick explanation on who Jeff Fassero is. So in case of any of you Mariner fans or even Expos fans remember Jeff Fassero, for the Mariners, he was the pitcher, the third starting pitcher other than Randy Johnson and Jamie Moyer from 1997 to 1999. He was traded from Montreal, who spent his initial part of his career, including being part of the 94 Juggernaut team, which was unfortunately ended by strike. Then he was traded after the 96 season to help with that starting pitching, where he was a pretty big part of that starting rotation, including 9 combined complete games from 97 to 98. In 97, he had 2 complete games. In 98, he had 7 complete games. And another statistic that would also stick out other than his 16-9 season was he was one of the top 10 in innings pitched with 234 innings total, a number you probably don't even see that much anymore in baseball. So we're going to go over as much as we can about Jeff Fassero. And if you guys have any other questions about him, please put it in the comments. But until then, we are going to get started right now. And Jeff, what are you up to right now these days? Like, you last played baseball in 2006.
Yeah.
What is Jeff Fassero up to?
I coached for 11 more years, and now I'm pretty much retired. I might give a private pitching lesson every once in a while. If not, I'm on the golf course playing golf. Down in Arizona, I get golf year round. So that's my hobby and my new passion.
And nothing better than that when you get to play golf and teach something that you love back then or do love now. I mean, I would definitely do that. And how's your golfing skills these days? Like, do you get pars and birdies?
My handicap's pretty low. My index is 3.1, so I'm pretty much a 3 everywhere I go.
Oh, something I can't even do that. Yeah. Well, that's great to know. And tell us about the coaching experience. Like, what was that like when you did that right after baseball?
I enjoyed it. It's fun. It was fun. It's kind of like me giving back all the knowledge that I had and all the knowledge I gained from playing 16 years in the majors and another 6 in the minors. So I enjoyed working with the kids, and I would still do it, but I kind of was phased out with the stats that are out there now, the statistics and analytics that are going through the game. I couldn't grasp them that well, so it was more to that, and as opposed to actually teaching them what they're supposed to be doing.
I can't blame you at all. Like, it makes me remember a time where, I watched few different eras of baseball. Like, I actually was old enough to remember the 90s and 2000s, where if I remembered, it was really about more instinct than the numbers. And then I guess I'd like to say after the 2002 Oakland A's and that whole Moneyball thing in the movie after 2011, then the whole analytics thing got all intensified to the point where there's a huge comparing whether it's should you play with the heart and the gut instinct or should you go with numbers? I don't think there was really a best answer to it.
I don't think there's a best answer to it either. I think there's a combination that could be taken out of it.
Yeah, and some could say that it could be overthought sometimes. So, but yeah, that's great to know that you were a coach and now you're just enjoying the life that you definitely worked hard for, and definitely proud of you for that. Now, the next question, Tell us about your path to baseball and how you went from the young days and then your initial start with the Montreal Expos.
How far back do you want me to go on this one?
Let's,
It's,
I guess,
As
what do we
far
the,
consider? What are we considering young days?
yeah. Any ideas? Trying what should we start with? Like maybe high school or college or in the minors?
you know,
I grew up. I loved baseball growing up. I followed the Cardinals. I grew up in the Midwest. Cardinals were a team I followed, and back in, let's see, I guess it would be the early '70s, mid '70s. Growing up following them, they had good teams. Bob Gibson's on that team, Lou Brock on that team, Kurt Flood. They had some good players. But basically, my whole life, baseball was my game. I played the other sports just to play them because back then you played baseball for 3 months and it was a new sport. So, back in the day, we didn't have to play it year round. High school, I didn't really play very much. I pitched 4 games, played the outfield a couple times. I really didn't start pitching until I went to junior college. And that basically is because I was the only left-hander on the team, and they wanted a left-handed pitcher with a good arm at the time. So that's where I went. Was originally drafted by the Cardinals. Played 5 years with them until I got Rule 5 by the White Sox and spent about 2 weeks with them, and they traded me to Cleveland. So I played 1 year with Cleveland. And after that, Cleveland wanted to sign me back to a Double-A contract where I just proved that I don't need to be in Double-A. And I was a free agent at the time. And that's when the Expos came calling. And they offered me a setup role, possible closer role in AAA. So I took that, and then I got off to a great start that year. And by May 4th, I was called to the big leagues. Spent like 10 days there before I got sent back down. And then after I got sent down, it was like a big heartbreak. I said, if I get called up, I'm not going back down again. And they fired the manager 10 days later. When you could get called back up, they had that rule. You had to be down for 10 days. And the 11th day, I got called up, and then I never saw another day of minor league baseball. No rehab, no anything, not another day of it until I started coaching it again.
Yeah, I'm looking at the minor league. I'm looking at the minor league statistics right now, and after what you said, I was thinking like, yeah, you were definitely due. Like, I personally, if I was in that position, like, I'd be like, yes, please do not send me down. Let me play. So, definitely glad it worked out for you because after that, you definitely became a factor for the Montreal Expos. Which, Mr. Trident, take it away. You will be covering the Montreal Expos portion of this show.
Be a pleasure. And I'm also a fellow Arizonian golfer, so that's great, and a left-handed
Perfect.
one as well. So, yeah,
good.
if you can take us through a little bit at the time in Montreal, especially 1994. Obviously, the strike year, it looked like the Expos were probably going to be the World Series champs that year. If you can just take us through a little bit of that and that year for you.
Oh, that year. I mean, we started off kind of bad. I think if you got stats and you pull them up, I think somewhere around May 5th or 6th, we were like 7 games behind the Braves at that time. And that's they'd already won like 4 divisions and titles in a row, and they started talking like there was nobody that was going to be able to catch them. They were just going to run away with the division. So we knew we had the talent because the year before we finished right behind them, and they were a team we weren't afraid of because we played them about 10 times in spring training because we shared the same complex all the time. So we were always seeing them. So there was really no intimidation factor for our team that by 94 with them. But like, I look at our starting rotation that year. I mean, we had pretty much 5 guys that could go deep in the game. Maybe Kirk Reeder, who was a rookie, didn't get deep. He was like a 5-inning guy. And the bullpen we had at that time, we had Wetland as a closer, Rojas as a setup man, Jeff Shaw as a setup man, which both guys ended up being closers for other teams and having good careers. So you look at the back end of our rotation, we had 3 closers really. So you really only had to go 7 innings. But, Pedro and I and Kenny Hill, our philosophy was we're starting the game, we're finishing the game. So that was it. And I look at the lineup we had put on the field. I mean, we had a Hall of Famer in right field, Walker, of course. Grissom, Gold Glove winner in center field. Moises Alou, a solid outfielder. And on the infield, we had Sean Barry, Cordero just coming up, outstanding shortstop at the time. Lansing at second base. Cliff Floyd was at first base till he broke his wrist, I believe that was a year, and Segui came in and helped us there. That team, we didn't have hardly any holes in that team at all. And if you look at, like right after the All-Star game, I think Philadelphia came into Montreal. We swept them 3 in a row. Braves came in. We swept them. So right after the All-Star game. And at that point, what were we, 6.5, 7 games up when the strike hit?
Yeah.
6.
And 6. We were like, and I kept telling us, this is only going to last 2 weeks. You guys will be back on the field. You'll be back on the field, ready to go. So you're out training, you're practicing, warming up. It just keeps going. It keeps going. And it's like the biggest disappointment ever, because I think that team would have definitely gone to the World Series. I don't think there's anybody that was going to beat us. We'd had home field advantage up in Montreal, which would have played very well into our hands. And it looked like it was, everybody talked there was going to be a clash between us and the White Sox possibly.
Yeah.
Yankees were pretty close to them too, but and I look back, I go, okay, the Seattle team I played for in '97, we should have gone further also. And the biggest heartbreak was the Expo team for me in my whole career, because I think that team, without a doubt, at that point in time, would have been in the World Series and possibly won it.
Well, hearing you talk about it and going through the lineup, you go back 20 years or close to 30 years now with that team. And, it's rare when you hear a team and just every name you mentioned, I knew. Like that's a superstar team. When you're going through that lineup right there, every single name is, almost a household name for that lineup. And that pitching staff, like you said, with you and Pedro and Kirk Reeder coming up as well. Definitely one of, I think in baseball history, one of the greatest teams that doesn't get recognized because of that strike.
Yeah, I agree, and it's 30 years because in April I'm going up for a Expo Fest. They're having a 30-year reunion. I think there's going to be about 20 guys off the team that are going to be up there, somewhere around there, 18 to 20 guys that are coming up. Pedro's going to be up there. Alou's going to be up there. I don't think Walker's coming, though. That's one of the disappointments. But there's going to be a good 18 of us up there.
That's really nice that City of Montreal still gives that gesture, and they still show a lot of love for the team. And hopefully, maybe if they even do expansion, hopefully Montreal not only gets their team, but also figures out that stadium situation, because I read about that stuff. That stadium situation just never could get off the ground, unfortunately. And some would say if 94 was a success,
I think they
history would be changed.
Yeah, I think they might still be there. They might have a nice stadium in downtown Montreal. And I think, it changed a lot of things for that city. It's a great city to play.
I would bet, yeah. I haven't been to Montreal, but I've had thoughts going up there just to take a look.
Do you like Europe? Have you been to Europe?
I have not yet.
I was going to say, it's like going to Europe, but you don't have to travel quite as far.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I could see that. Anything else you got, Trident, on?
Yeah, Jeff, you'd kind of mentioned, at the start of the video, your journey to the big leagues and going up, from St. Louis to the Cardinals to Cleveland with the White Sox and all that stuff. And I think baseball, more than any other sport, with starting out in the minor leagues, you have stuff like that where you're DFA'd and then you're getting another contract, then you're called up and you're sent back down. In football and stuff, yeah, there's transactions, but you're kind of on the team, you're on the team. How do you keep that mindset together to make it to the bigs? Is there a point where you looked at and go, man, I can't do this, and you want to give up, or what gets you through those type of years?
There are times that, like, when you're done it in the minor leagues for like 4 or 5 years, and you're really not. I mean, I'd been up to AAA about my 5th year and back and forth between AAA and AA. And then the next year I go all the way back to AA for a whole year. There are times, but fortunately I met a good woman and she told me to play as long as I wanted to play, so
Nice.
the drive's always there. And, it's a passion, and I had the passion to want to play, and it was just figuring out certain things that would give me consistency. And I had a couple good pitching coaches, especially my AAA guy in Montreal. He talked well. And then when I got to big leagues, Larry Burnoth was good, but he retired after my freshman year, or my first year. I guess that would have been my freshman year in the big leagues.
It is freshman year.
Kerrigan came in, and we meshed very well together. And he was solid for me the whole time I was up in Montreal. And that's good coaching, people that know what you're doing and know how to relate to you. I think that's the biggest thing that helps you stay in the big leagues.
Definitely. Yeah. I love the shout out for your wife as well. I think that is so important in anything you do. When you have that person by you, it means it really does.
Means the world. That's what he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it certainly had a lot to do with your 5.0 wins above replacement in 97. So shout out to Dixon, Mr. Dixon, for pointing that out, which we will get to that unless, Trident, you got any other questions about the Montreal years or the early years of baseball of Mr. Jeff Fassero? All right.
No, go ahead.
So
take it from there.
Now we're going to move on to the Mariners portion, the part that I've been itching for. So to get a background, Jeff Fassero, and I said it earlier in the video, he was traded to the Seattle Mariners in 1996 after the 96 season to the Seattle Mariners from Montreal. And the trade package of that was he went to the Mariners with Alex Pacheco, if I've said that right.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Yep, and it was for Trey Moore, Matt Wagner, and Chris Widger. Chris Widger was I think, third string catcher behind Dan Wilson. Matt Wagner was tried. They tried to use him in the starting rotation, did not work out, possibly due to the injuries. But yes, Jeff Fassero was added because it was the need to add to that starting rotation with Randy Johnson and Jeff Fassero, or Randy Johnson and Jamie Moyer, and also Bob Wolcott, who is another 95 hero of the Mariners. And going into 97, here were Jeff Fassero's numbers: 16-9 with a 3.61 ERA, 2 complete games, the 5 wins above replacement, and 234 innings pitched. And also on his very first playoff game, Game 3 of the American League Division Series against Baltimore, he won that game, retiring 18 in a row, secured the win, at least gave the Mariners hope to at least keep it close in the American League Division Series, but unfortunately, they would lose Game 4. Now, the first question is, what was it like playing in a starting rotation with Randy Johnson, playing with Jamie Moyer? You had a catcher in Dan Wilson, and the offense of Ken Griffey Jr., Edgar Martinez, Alex Rodriguez, and Jay Buhner.
When I got traded there, my agents, the first thing they said is you're going to have probably the best offense you've had since the 94 team with the Expos. He goes, they're young, they're energetic. So I said, okay, perfect. And then the other thing that I liked about getting traded was I could get those innings because I didn't have to get pitch hit for in the 7th or 8th inning. So I could gain those extra innings. I had Edgar hitting for me every time I was out there pitching, which is a pretty good trade-off.
Big time.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was a joy coming out there. I loved it. The team was great. I run into Griffey out here every once in a while in spring training. I haven't seen Jay in a while. Still trade Christmas cards with Dan. And I talked to Jamie Moyer a lot. Jamie and I got pretty close on the team. And I see Randy, because Randy lives in Arizona, every once in a while, but, he kind of sticks to himself. But the three of us had a pretty good relationship. We would go out lunches and dinners before and after games. It's kind of hard to drag some of these guys out like Randy and Griffey because everybody knows who they are. If you're going to go out to dinner, we had to get private rooms all the time because you just get bothered.
Yeah.
But when you have Jay around, he just tells people to get out of there. Leave us alone. This is a private dinner. We're enjoying ourselves. You want our autographs, come to the baseball game and stuff like that. We'll sign there.
It's quite a story, yeah. I mean, with Junior, like you see, if anyone sees Junior, it will never end, and
No.
it will just cause so much problems. Where, I mean, that's why you have guys like Jay Buhner, who is one of your most fearless leaders on the team.
Yes, he was. He was
right,
good.
and then, yeah, definitely. And although as much as 97 was a fantastic season, a team that hit 264 home runs on the offensive side, a very solid starting rotation with Randy and Jamie and yourself. However, there was a difficulty with the bullpen. And yes, the bullpen was unfortunately known for giving up so many blown saves where if you actually even cut down half of those, Mariners would have easily been a 100 win team. So did it affect your mindset when the bullpen wasn't so hot and your starting rotation was expected to go pretty long innings? Like, did it change your mindset of like how you would pitch? Like, did you feel the pressure to feel the need to pitch very well so that way it could leave some wiggle room for the bullpen?
I didn't look at it like that. I looked at, like I said, it was the same. I always had the same philosophy when I started in Montreal and carried it into Seattle. If I'm starting a game, I'm finishing the game, unless the manager comes out and takes the ball away. But if, and that's his decision. But Lou was good. He'd come out and ask you, "What do you think?" And I said, "I still feel good. I think I can get through this inning." And but sometimes pitch counts did come into play because there's sometimes I threw 130 plus pitches in games in Seattle at times. But I never really thought about in your mind it's there, but when I'm out there pitching, I'm not thinking about what's going to happen at the end of the game. I'm going to do my job the best I can, and then you just hope that they're going to click and do their job at the end of our games.
Yep.
You talk about, everybody talks about like how do I feel when he took me out in the game in Baltimore, and I go, well, what I go 8 1/3 before I came out of the game, and I gave up a hit. They might have ruined that streak of 18 in a row.
It was 18, and we were gonna actually go more full detail about that classic playoff game, which I do think personally it is one of the more underrated performances in Mariners history. So we're gonna get into that part where it was game 3. Now, actually, before we get into game 3, I want to talk about your feelings on when the Mariners won the division in 97, where they defeated the Anaheim Angels, because I understand that was actually your first playoff clincher. So take me to that. So after Slocum made that last strikeout, what was going through your mind? How did it feel?
Oh, it felt great. I mean, finally, after the disappointment in 94 and finally getting that taste of getting in the playoffs, and you're excited about it. I mean, it was a big party for us. Most of those guys had been there in 95, missed it in 96, missed it in 96, and we got back. They were just as excited as I was, because I mean, you look at it, you go all season long, and no matter what you say, I don't care what team you play, you have one goal, that's to get the World Series. And first step's getting into the playoffs. And clinching the division, having that happen was like one of the most exciting things, and it's probably the best celebration, that first one, that you can have.
Oh yeah, definitely exciting. I mean, especially when it was definitely a disappointment they missed it in 96. And if anyone looks up the numbers of 96, the Mariners offense put up like very unprecedented numbers, but unfortunately due to Randy being out, bullpen not being the best, they still missed the playoffs. And with a team like that, anyone would say, how did they not make the playoffs? Like when I was growing up as a kid, I was like, how did they not make the playoffs with that kind of team? But then once you get older, you understand you need pitching, you need basically everything else.
Everything's, for the most part, I mean, not everything's going to go right every game, but to make the playoffs, almost everything has to go right for at least 90, 92, 93 of the games.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And then Mr. Dixon actually has a question. I think it's a good question. How was the atmosphere playing at the Kingdom?
The Kingdom was like when we were there, it was loud. When we were playing good and we were scoring runs and stuff like that, it was loud and it was fun. It echoed. I will say the only thing that I really didn't like about the Kingdom was that when you go in there, everything was gray. So it kind of reminded. I spent my first year. I spent the winter up there, and it was pretty much gray. So you have a beautiful day in June, July, August, and you go in there and you go, oh, shoot, it's so nice outside. I wish we were outside. But
Absolutely.
I enjoyed it. I think like I was a ground ball pitcher. So I never had to really worry about too many bad hops on the AstroTurf. I had the same luxury in Montreal too. I mean, yeah, the ball doesn't slow down because the grass isn't there, but I have no complaints with the Kingdom. I enjoyed pitching there.
I mean, that's good to hear because I mean, Kingdom was known to be a hitter's park, but glad it worked out for you, especially where definitely a hitter's park and a lot of hitters, they really did put a lot of home runs there. And now we'll get into game 3 of the playoffs where although the Mariners won that division convincingly, although it was not the prettiest division win, unfortunately, due to like bullpen struggles and all that. Now they did make the playoffs, but unfortunately, with Randy Johnson, game 1, he got absolutely bounced by Baltimore, especially by the bold decision made by Davey Johnson, where he did not start Rafael Palmeiro, and it did pay off to make it 9-3 victory on them. Then game 2, Mariners had a little bit of good start, scored 2 runs, but then Jamie Moyer's injury did not really help, and then they lost again 9-3. And what was your thoughts going into game 3, being down 2-0, knowing that if you lose one more game, you guys are going home?
Yeah, well, we went into Baltimore, had the day off, did our workouts and did everything. My family came in, like wife and kids at the time. My mom and dad were there, and we went out to dinner that night, the night before the game, and was coming back into the hotel, and Lou was sitting at the bar. He called me over, told me to sit down and have a drink. And I go, Lou, I don't really drink before the night before I pitch. And he goes, hey, when your manager tells you to sit down and have a drink, you sit down and have a drink. I said, that's fine. My wife and I, we sat down and talked, and he was talking about the game. He goes, his thing was, what's the worst thing that could happen tomorrow? You lose and we have to go home in 3, or you go out and win and we get to live and play for another day. I mean, he just made you feel relaxed. Just go out there and do what you can. And if I actually have a tape of that game, and a couple of years ago I watched it, and I looked at that first inning. I go, could have been a completely different thing if I didn't get out of that first inning. So I think I had bases loaded and 1 out, and got a double play without them scoring. After that, I pitched pretty well. The second and third inning were not great, but after that, I think about the 4th inning, it got locked in, and it was easy. I mean, you're looking at their lineup. They had a good lineup too, but for some reason, it just got easy.
Definitely did. Yeah, I remember I watched that game, and I kind of feel bad that it's one of the more. It's not a game that everyone remembers because it's kind of hard to compete with the 95s, the 2001s. But I will show a really quick clip, and I have a few clips to show of the 97 game and here is the clip of Jeff Fassero striking out Cal Ripken Jr. Here it is in just a moment.
The results are good nonetheless.
Ripken going looking, a fastball in the inside corner. Fassero when his team needs him most.
God, I looked young back then.
Yeah, I was even younger back then too. Yeah, I didn't mean I shouldn't have said that, but got something.
I love the I love that Lou Piniella story with you guys sitting at the bar and him saying that. And I think Lou kind of has this perception of being hard, you know, a bit of a hard ass and stuff with certain things. But I think that's what made Lou Piniella so special is, you know, he could go off the rails, but you know, that I think that's just a perfect little speech for a manager to his player before a game. Like, what's the worst going to happen? You know what I mean? And just to sit down with you and have that conversation, I think is just such a cool story.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's one I'll always remember. You know, I was lucky because like when I started coaching again, he was working with the Reds organization, so I got to hang out with him some more. You know, while he's out here for spring training. You know, it's nice to hang out with those guys, and then every once in a while I go down and see Felipe. Well, not the last couple of years because I don't think he's been here. When he was with the Giants, because that's who I had in Montreal for like 5 of the years. You know, so it was always nice to see those two guys because I was probably closest with those two as my managers of all the teams that I played on.
Oh, definitely. Any other Lou Piniella stories that can be shared if you have any good ones? I love that bar story. That is great.
That's a great story.
Any other, because Lou's a character.
You guys had to see. You had to see all the good ones. Did you see the best one? I mean, the whole bench in Cleveland when he did the kick, the hat.
Kicks the hat. Griffey's laughing.
Everybody, our whole bench was dying. It was like the funniest thing we've ever seen. You know, and he just gets up and walks back in, pissed off.
Just got.
I always feel like, I always feel like that. Just sometimes the players got to know the manager's got your back. He may know the call was correct or something, but you know, it's just it got everybody laughing, you know, having a good time, and sometimes that's what you need to keep you loose.
Yeah, I mean, you know, he had an edge to him, but I mean, he was a very fair manager. You know, he would tell you what it's like and what it's about. You know, some people can handle it, some people can't. I mean, with managers and stuff like that. But I would go out there and play for him again right now.
I mean, I would definitely love
in an over 60 and older league. Nothing young.
I would definitely love Lou Piniella back on the Mariners. Like, it's us as a Mariners fan base. He's definitely one of the managers that we absolutely miss the most. And I remember like when he got traded away to Tampa, like the pain was just it was well felt because he was one of those firm but fair, and those are actually the best managers who knows how to do that, where they are firm and they do tell you like what is going on, but also they do a good job connecting with the players too.
Yes, they do. I mean, you know, he let us run our clubhouse. The players ran it. If he needed to come in, he would come in when he needed to come in. But for the most part, you know, he just let us run the clubhouse and police ourselves, which is when you have a manager who does that, that's always nice. You know, because that just makes your team tighter because we're policing ourselves.
Yeah, self-accountability.
Keeping everybody accountable for what they're supposed to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's why we definitely miss a lot about Lou Piniella. And now going back to game 3, we're going to show a clip where the bases were loaded in the first inning, bottom of the first, and here is exactly what happened.
B.J. Surhoff on the ground. Fassero can't find it. Throws to first, and they got him at first.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind when that all happened, especially when you couldn't find the ball for like at least a couple seconds?
It was bringing flashbacks back to my no-hitter in Montreal. Same thing happened. I didn't find the ball and didn't get the guy out in time. Oh. You know, it's like it hit the inside of my foot, so I knew it had to be somewhere close, and I wasn't sure if it popped up first or if it stayed on the ground. Once I looked down on the ground, it was there. I'm just glad B.J. Surhoff wasn't Alomar at the time.
Or at least Brady Anderson or any of them
Yeah,
like that.
somebody that was a little faster.
I mean, because I play
and-
softball too. I play softball as well, and I also pitch. And if something like that happened to me, I would have just completely just lost it. And I definitely commend you for your high level of concentration that you're still able to get the man out, because it definitely made a huge difference. Because I think if one run scored, I think the game would have played out differently, just a
They played out
little
a lot
bit.
differently, yeah.
Yeah. And after,
is it bad that
Dryden-
watching that, the nerve, even though I know the results, I'm like going back to my childhood watching him, like, Jeff, it's right there, get it, grab it, throw it out.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even
I
later.
mean,
I
the
wanna
infielders
ask-
are yelling at your foot. It's at your foot. It's at your foot. So, eventually
which
you
foot?
get there.
I wanted to ask you, you had mentioned that first inning, you got into a little trouble there, bases loaded, and got out of it. I always feel like for pitchers, sometimes the first inning, you're finding your command, you're finding yourself. You get out of that with 0 runs, and you did kind of touch on this, but how much of that just kind of settle you down? Like, okay, got out of it, we're good, and then go right back out there with that mindset.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I will tell you that going out to that first inning, I was nervous. There were butterflies because I'd never done that before, so it wasn't something like I knew exactly what's going on. And so you get a little nervous, you don't have the command and control that you want to have that first inning, and you just survive. And for me, at that point, it was just survive the first inning and then go from there. And luckily enough, I survived it without any runs. So there was no, which was big for us.
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're thankful that we got to hear your actual perspective on that, because I watched that like all the time, and I'm thinking, how did he do that? What went through it? And now I'm glad we got the explanation. And now we have a fan here that is asking this: what was your plan to strike out Cal Ripken Jr. or minimize his impact on the game, including an offense that had Roberto Alomar, Rafael Palmeiro, Jeffrey Hammonds, Geronimo Baroa? Like, what was that plan other
Brady
than the
Anderson.
whole dinner with Lou Piniella?
Well, the thing about, we had game plans back then. We knew weaknesses, we knew swing tendencies of guys like that. And I know that Ripken was a guy that didn't like the ball inside very much. And once I got ahead of him with 2 strikes, I was never afraid to pitch inside, so I went to what was considered his weakness, so my philosophy was, you have hitters that get in certain counts, and if you know their weaknesses and you can exploit it, that's what you do. And I can do that. I was very good at pitching inside to right-handers.
Definitely useful for that, because knowing that I play softball, like, my biggest goal is always pitch them inside, because it will hit the skinny part of their bat and it'll cause the pop-ups. So yeah, it's definitely useful to be able to do that. And
sometimes going on to that, when you're facing like somebody like McGuire or Albert Pujols, somebody that's big and strong, powerful, it's better off to pitch them inside and let them hit it to the third baseman instead of back at you.
yeah, the big barrel of the bat will definitely do it. I've been hit before. It ain't fun.
No. Well,
No.
After the game, the first inning after the game where I got hit in the foot there, I took off my shoe in the clubhouse and I had a big bruise on my foot.
Oh,
I didn't feel it the whole game. I had no idea it was there.
Right.
Because of the adrenaline that's going through you. But when I looked at it, I go, wow, that's pretty black right now.
and it didn't really seem to matter, because you did retire 18 in a row. And here is a clip of you getting that 18th batter in a row. And now, fun fact, right before that, it was Brady Anderson right before that, where he nearly hit that home run, which I guess I might as well ask you about that. But here is that quick clip of his 18th batter in a row retired. Check it out.
111 pitches, the 4th highest total in the American League. So he's giving him what he's got left here.
And he has another 1, 2, 3 inning. Fassero has retired. 18 consecutive batters.
Wow, I got another Hall
18
of Famer
indeed.
out.
Right? That was Alomar.
You
Yeah.
know, and getting him out was big because he had pretty good numbers against me, I think, throughout the career. I had trouble getting him out, especially when he went from I had more success getting him out right-handed, but then he started hitting left-handed off me, and he would find that hole over there and stuff where basically about where he hit the ball right there. But you know, it's weird because I would talk to him. I go, switch hitter, why are you hitting left-handed off me now? He goes, because I don't see the ball off your right hand. I see it better when I'm hitting left-handed.
I was going to ask that because I know watch that clip. I'm like, why is he hitting left-handed off?
Yeah.
But there you go. Good to know. The lineups back then in the 90s were, you know, I was joking with Rooftop. We were talking the other day, and like in every sport, offense has gone up. Football offense has gone up. Basketball offense has gone up. Baseball is the one sport where offense has kind of gone down. You know, you look at those lineups back when you were pitching, even the 9-hole hitters, you know, maybe at least on the good teams, they were hitting 275 with 19 home runs, it seems like back then. So, you know, what was that like pitching in that era where, you know, guys were hitting 50 home runs regularly, it seemed like.
Yeah, you know, the difference too, the guys that hit, even you look at Junior who hit 50 home runs, he still hit 300. You know, these guys that are hitting 45 home runs, 50 home runs nowadays, they're hitting 210. They're really not, you know, productivity of runs being scored compared to how runs were scored back in our day. I mean, like you said, the 9-hole hitter back in the day, like we had Joey Corey hit 9/4, and I think he hit like 270 that year. He did put the ball in play and got on base. He was basically another table setter for Alex, Edgar, and Junior at the time. You know, you have, you know, coming out of that 9th hole, if he's on base and leadoff hitter's on base, I don't even remember who was the leadoff hitter at the time back then. I'm trying to think who
for the Mariners.
Yeah, who did we have?
Mariners. It was Roberto Kelly in '97.
Oh, okay. So I mean, you got those guys get on base in front of Alex Jr. and Edgar. You know, we're getting runs.
Yep,
for sure. But I mean, you look at the teams that were winning. I mean, the White Sox had a great lineup too. When I saw them for the first time, like, wow. Because you know,
Albert Bell and Frank Thomas.
Yeah, you know, and that, you know, it's tough. It was completely different. I mean, at least when I was pitching in the National League at the time, there was no DH, so it basically had an out at the bottom of the order as long as you didn't make a dumb mistake.
Yeah.
So
like giving up a home run.
I did that to Smoltz. Smoltz hit one off of me.
Oh,
and he hit
hit
it the other way too, which was kind of shocking.
Oh my God.
Thought it was a good pitch down and away. I think he was just late on it and caught it good.
It just happened to catch it.
Yeah, I might have hit his bat instead of him hitting the ball.
There you go. You supplied the power for him.
Definitely. Now I'm looking at. I actually took the time to look at the stats, and Roberto Alomar, he hit 474 with a 524 on base percentage. So
told you he hit me pretty good.
He did. That will totally do it.
He's the only Hall of Famer that hit me really good. If you go back and look at some of these guys, like Tony Gwynn didn't hit me very well. Walker didn't hit me well. Frank Thomas didn't hit me well. Bagwell didn't hit me well.
Yeah, I
don't think Kyle Ripken hit me very well either. But,
wow, it's like I should probably look that up sometime, and
yeah,
and if I do, that will definitely up the appreciation of that. Yeah, you were able to get some of those big boys down.
I mean, I know what Glenn had a 330 lifetime batting average. I think he hit somewhere around the 270, 280 off me, maybe. So it's well below his average.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a batting average that many baseball players are now trying to maintain. Like if you're a 270, 280 hitter today, you're considered like a very consistent player. Back in those days when I remembered, you were like, man, maybe an average player at the very best.
Yeah, I mean, you look at team batting averages back in the day. Like when we were playing team batting averages, I mean, a low one might be 250.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you got 220s and 230s.
Now they're
Things like
creeping
that.
into below 200 as a regular player, and could be someone's all-star too, unfortunately. Yeah. So also, yeah, well, yeah, go ahead.
Go. I do want to ask, because we talked about getting a lot of those Hall of Famers out. Was there any hitter that wasn't that just gave you fits besides John Smoltz? Was there any hitter that you just were just like, I don't understand why I can't get this guy out?
Yeah, there's two guys. They didn't have a lot of bats off me, but John Jaha for the Brewers and Chad Allen with the Twins. I mean, they only have maybe 10 to 12 bats off me, but I mean, they probably had 7 or 8 hits off me too. They were something that I couldn't I couldn't figure out what to do to get them out. But those are the two.
Jaha was a good hitter.
Yeah. Jay Bell hit me pretty good, but not like those two guys hit me. I mean, I think Jaha might be 7 for 10 and Allen might be 8 for 10.
Yeah.
At least Jay Bell I get out once in a while. As far as
once in a while, yeah.
Oh, and Jeff Kent gave me fits too.
Oh, Jeff Kent.
Yeah.
And had one on Barry Bonds too in 2002.
What's that?
They had a feud with each other. Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent had that feud.
Yeah.
But going back to the game 3, because we still have a couple more questions. So I remember before that 18 in a row that was done, Brady Anderson nearly hit the home run off of you, but luckily it just trailed just foul. Was there anything that was going through your mind or any of the players' thoughts when Brady Anderson nearly at least made it a 1-run game?
Yeah, no, I mean, when it's hit down the line, you're just hoping it's going to have a hook or slice on it. And, if in Colorado, that probably would have stayed fair. But in Baltimore, where you have humidity and stuff, where it's going to catch the seams, it's going to keep the spin going so that it will
definitely
make it curve more.
Yeah, definitely. And then after that inning, which I'll explain, Jay Buhner and Paul Sorrento hit their back-to-back home runs, which was like a breath of fresh air because the Mariners' offense was unfortunately handled very well by Baltimore. And it was 4-0. And then Jeff Fassero gets the ball going into the 9th inning to hopefully finishes the game. And then this happens.
3-0 pitch. And it's ball 4 to Moreau. And that's going to be it for Fassero. Lou Piniella comes walking out of the Mariners' third base side dugout. They have their closer, Heathcliff Slocum, ready in the bullpen. Piniella has not made the official decision yet, and now he does.
Of course, us fans are like, no, keep him in. It was just one hitter. I would have been like that if I was at least old enough. But yeah, I saw you were putting your hand on your head, like,
because I think if you look at the numbers, I think I was like at 140 pitches at that point, and it was the right thing to do at that time. There was no reason. I mean, I did what I needed to do too, and Lou knew it. And, Lou was probably just as like, which way do I want to go with this? Leave one of my top pitchers in or go to the bullpen? But, in my opinion, he made the right decision at that time.
Fortunately, it eventually worked out, and although Slocum did give up the 2 runs, he eventually did get out of it against Harold Baines, who actually hit very well against Slocum. It was like a 500-something batting average, and then in just 2 pitches, he hits a pop-up to A-Rod, and the game ended, and then it seemed that winning that series actually didn't seem that crazy of an idea because although, yes, down 2-0, not only yourself, solid, very good pitcher. Then you had Randy Johnson on 3 days rest, where they actually still showed the statistic that Randy Johnson on 3 days rest was actually a more effective pitcher than Mike Mussina. So had you won game 4, maybe game 5, would have had that confidence to close that door because Mussina wouldn't have been available anyway because he was already been used. But unfortunately, the season ends in 97 with a Jay Buhner grounder. And what were the thoughts and feelings, and what was like the atmosphere like in that clubhouse after that game and series?
I mean, it was disappointment. I mean, we played so well all year long, and to have that, you're going in there, you have high expectations. We had three very good starters. I mean, I know they had Messina, they had Jimmy Key. I forget who their other pitcher was at the time. So it's going to be a tough match. It's going to be a tough series, but we felt like with our offense that we were going to be able to score at least 5 runs a game off them, and they pitched the shit out of the ball too. So it was tough for us.
It definitely was. And had you guys won that series, like let's say you made that miracle comeback, which I think would have been much more impressive than the 95 comeback. Do you guys think you would have had enough juice to get through Cleveland and then supposedly get through the Marlins? Like, do you think you guys would have had anything left to finish the job to get that World Series, in your opinion, at least?
Well, I think it would have came down to how bad Jamie Moyer was hurt. Don't know if he could have pitched Game 5 if Randy would have won that game, or if we were going to have to piece it together, or I guess it could have been Walcott or Kenny Cloud starting that last game.
I heard it was Kenny Cloud. Lou Piniella was talking about it was going to be Kenny Cloud.
Yeah, I think that's who it was, because nobody really knew about how bad Jamie was. I think if we get through that game, we might have had a chance to get through Cleveland. I mean, we would have had, because then I would, even if Jamie couldn't have been, at least I could have started game 1 of that series, and then Randy could have probably followed me by that time, because you would have off days going into those series. So it would have put Randy and I back, and then and at that point you're going. It's been almost a week for Moyer. Maybe he's ready to go again. So I mean, we had good 3, but then you just, like you've always, all you guys have talked about is like leaving it down to the bullpen. But it's a complete team game, and you got to believe in each other, and that was the thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And now to think of it, maybe beating Cleveland wouldn't have been as crazy as an idea as well, because there would have been that source of motivation, since Cleveland did defeat the Mariners in 95. Maybe there would have been that little bit of a revenge factor, and that they kind of did just grind through the Yankees. So maybe anything could have been possible, but unfortunately, we'll never know.
I mean, and you look at that time, Cleveland's bullpen wasn't a stellar bullpen that year either.
Yeah, Jose Mesa. I mean, and that was Jose Mesa and is like more of like his downward trend, because it seemed that after 95 and 96, he wasn't the same. And I looked at his numbers and his moments. So maybe, who knows, if could have pulled it off. Would have been nice.
Yeah. It would have been.
Is.
So, yeah, it was just, it was a letdown. You play so well all year long, and you're out in the first series. I mean, St. Louis, at least I made it to the second series. I think we would have won that one if Scott Rowland didn't get hurt. That was a big blow to us in St. Louis.
That was the 2002 series, wasn't it, against the Giants in the NLCS? Yeah.
Yeah. Scott got hurt the last game against the Diamondbacks.
No, that wouldn't have helped. No.
He had that collision and it messed up his shoulder, and I think that hurt us. Definitely hurt us defensive wise, but it also took a pretty good bat out of our lineup.
Yeah, I mean, he's a Hall of Famer for a reason, so that'll definitely do it. And well, maybe we'll get more into that 2002 season, because I did look up your stats, and that was also when you caught fire as well in the bullpen. But before we get into that, let's talk about the experience of Safeco Field in 1999. And Jay Trident Podcast, this one's all yours.
Yeah, it's random or weird, I should say, to have a stadium open mid-season, versus starting a season new ballpark. What was that like, going from playing games in the Kingdom, then the next day you're at a whole new ballpark playing?
Yeah, I mean, it was different. I mean, but at the time you're going out there in the middle of the summer, and everybody in Seattle probably loved it. The stadium was beautiful at the time it was built. It was completely different. I mean, if you look at the team, built power, home runs, and now all of a sudden we've gone into a stadium that we might have needed a little more speed and maybe a little less power at the time. But, I mean, who are you going to get rid of off of that team? You're not going to get rid of Buter. You're not going to get rid of Edgar. You're not going to get rid of Junior. You're not going to get rid of Alex. I mean, but because, I mean, it was a death trap for those guys, though, as far as home runs and stuff go. But I think it's a big change when you go, like, you're playing half your games in the Kingdome, and then you're going to play your other half outside in a new stadium. It's a completely different thing. And, you know, at the time, like I said, I don't know if we had a team built for the outside at that time.
I agree. That's something, I hadn't really thought about that with that team, but you went from, I mean, not only to a literal different ballpark that just, almost changes the way you need to be built. And another thing that makes baseball so unique is that the ballpark matters for how you build a team. There's no other sport that has that, where you have to think about the dimensions and everything with how you want to build your team.
Yeah, it's completely different, for baseball. I mean, you see it nowadays too. I mean, you look at like Cincinnati Stadium small, Philadelphia Stadium small, and they're built for both those teams built for power and home runs. I mean, have they moved the fields in at Safeco?
They did for the 2013 season. They moved it in,
and they've left them in, right?
They've left them in there since.
Yeah, so I mean, they've made it a little smaller. They did the same thing in Detroit. I mean, originally Detroit Stadium was big. They moved the fences in, and so you're building teams different.
Yep.
So
try and get any other questions from that 99 season, because I think I might have one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh yeah, so 99. So we saw that you were a great contributor in 97. 98 you also held up, and you actually pitched more complete games that season. 99 I can see that it was a very difficult season. Personally, I didn't blame you at all, because those years leading up, I mean, I would think that maybe you would have been exhausted by then. I don't know what the real reason was, but eventually you got traded to the Texas Rangers. And if you would like to take us through it, about how that all happened, what were the feelings of when you went from the Mariners to the Texas Rangers towards the end of that 99 season?
I mean, it's always tough. I mean, you're leaving a lot of good friends behind, and it was a tough season. I had bone chips taken out in the fall that year, and I don't know if mentally I was holding back throwing and stuff like that, which could have affected me during that season. But, at the point, the team, I mean, I wasn't having a good season. The team wasn't having a good season. And you look at, okay, so I just got traded to first place, and I got new life. I got a chance to get into the playoffs with a new team. We got there and got swept by the Yankees in 3 games. You want to talk about a team that was intimidated by another team. I'd never seen anything like that. They were afraid of the Yankees. They were hoping we were going to play somebody else in the playoffs in the first round other than the Yankees. But, I wrote it as it's going to be a new chapter in my life. I went there. I finished the season there. It was okay. It wasn't great. I had some good guys. They had some good guys on the team, guys I played with. But, I was a free agent at the end of that year, and so Boston came calling because Kerrigan was the pitching coach there, and I thought, oh, this might be a good fit to get me back to where I was prior to the 99 season. And it was for a while. And as a starter, I started out okay, started struggling, went to the bullpen. And when I went back to the bullpen, I started throwing the ball better again. And I felt more comfortable down there again. So after that, I was back in the bullpen for pretty much the rest of my career. There were times I'd get spot starts and some starts here and there, but I kind of liked being back in the bullpen, because at that point it was giving me a chance to pitch every day again, instead of that once every 5 days. There's a different mindset between both of those. I mean, some guys can pitch every day, some guys can't, and they got every 5 days. They don't want no part of being in a bullpen. But you always go into the ballpark with a chance to pitch. And when I first got called up, I was in the bullpen. And when they wanted me to move to rotation, I wasn't sure I wanted to do that because I knew that I'll be pitching every 5 days. And I kind of like going to the ballpark every day, knowing I got a chance to play the game today and help the team win.
Never really thought of that, where it's definitely different, where you get to pitch a little bit more often the bullpen and in small increments rather than waiting for 5 days. So that's something I never really thought of. So I thought that was a very interesting thought. And speak of Boston, I
Especially
actually
if you're a
had
bounce back, if you struggle, if you bounce back, you go right back out there the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually the whole Boston thing actually sparked something. So I actually looked it up, and this was probably a top 10 memorable game I watched, but it was the 19-inning game between the Mariners and the Boston Red Sox, where, yes, it historically went to 19 innings. I remember watching it the entire time. I remember that game was going into midnight. And little do we know, Jeff Fassero was there. And I don't mean to throw any shade or anything, but Mike Cameron did hit that home run game winner to right field. And
another guy that never hits the ball. He's another guy that never hit the ball the other way.
It all happened on the opposite ways too. But
yeah.
But what was that experience like playing you're playing one of the most historical games in Mariners history, but what was it like playing in a long game like that?
Oh, it's tiresome. I mean, you just get tired. And the only reason I was in that game because I was the last pitcher that hadn't pitched in 5 days. I was supposed to start tomorrow, so I had to come in the game and pitch. I was going to start in Oakland the next day, and I was the only guy that we could get out there on the mound and tie games still. So, I mean, you're sitting around all day long. And as a starter, now I had to go back to a different routine to get ready to pitch in that game. So it's tough. And especially when you're like mentally during that game, I'm getting ready to pitch the next day. I'm not really thinking about, I'm watching the game, I'm understanding, I'm cheering for the team, but it's not something you expect to do at, 11:50 at night to go in and pitch a game at that point. So it's games like that can be a real grind. I mean, basically played a doubleheader.
Yeah.
I mean,
without a break.
Right.
But fortunately, though, you guys did win the next day 5-2, and Pedro Martinez looks like he stepped up and go, yeah, I got this. And of course he did, because he kept beating up on the Mariners until 2005.
Yeah. So.
Well, now we'll go into, I guess, the other later parts of that career. I guess we'll go into the St. Louis Cardinals part. And what were your best memories of that 2002 season? Because I saw that it looks like you got traded to St. Louis at the time. I'm trying to see which team you played for in that 02
Cubs.
season.
Those were the Cubs when I got traded.
Gotcha. It was the Cubs.
I went from last to first there too. It was kind of nice. Cubs, there was a lot of stuff going on in the organization. Managers changed and fired and stuff like that. So the organization, pitching coach got changed. There's some disarray in the organization at that time. And going to St. Louis was good, and I got to contribute in the playoffs. I think I got 2 wins against the Diamondbacks.
You did.
And I didn't get a win against the Giants, though. But I did pitch a good inning, and we almost came back and won the game that I had come in. And Finley was sitting on the bench. He goes, if we win this game, you're going to come in and pitch every game if we're down at least 1 inning or 1 out, because it seems to be that we're coming back and scoring runs every time you're in the game. So, but it was fun. And like I said, we talk about the Cardinals. I think we got hurt when Scott Rowland got hurt.
Definitely.
I think that set us back against the Giants.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, like you said before, like it looks like you guys may have gotten a chance to beat the Angels, which I wouldn't have doubted at all.
I think so too.
Yeah, of course. And then go real quickly as well, like any other memorable things any quick memorable moments you had after the Cardinal years? And then I saw that your career ended in San Francisco in 2006. Anything to remember from those days?
I mean, I went from the Cardinals to Colorado for a year. That might not have been the best move, going to that ballpark. But it was okay. It wasn't bad. But like San Francisco I had a good time in San Francisco. We played okay my first year and not so good the second year, but had a good group of guys there too. And I got to be reunited with Felipe again, which was kind of nice, as him being my manager again. But I will say this, as far as my career goes, St. Louis, I got to play in the playoffs, but I got to play in a lot of good cities. I got to play, Montreal is a really good city. Seattle was a really good city. Boston, great city. Chicago, a great city. San Francisco, a great city. I mean, if you're going to travel, if you're going to get moved around a lot, at least I got to go to a lot of good cities to play baseball in.
Definitely.
And which one was your most favorite out of all of them?
It's so hard to say. I mean, they all have great things, and then, the more I go back to Montreal now, that was a great city to be in. Because I've been back there 3 or 4 times since I've been retired. I think 3. This will be my 4th coming up in April. And it's just like the city is just, it's weird because I walk around town, but there's still people that know who I am there, which is,
that's awesome.
It's really kind of good. And like, I don't know, you go up there and they still have stores open that have Expo stuff in it. And so it was good. As far as Seattle was great because the restaurants were great. I mean,
They do, yeah.
They have great restaurants. San Francisco was great because they had great restaurants too.
Great seafood options.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Well, looks like we are getting close to the time. Time's getting close, but got a couple more questions left. And just out of curiosity, like, how do you feel about the new pitch clock these days? Now we're comparing your days of baseball and now today's baseball.
Yeah,
like, how do you feel about that pitch clock?
I think it's good because, like, even when I was coaching, I was trying to get these kids to pitch faster and move the game along quicker and stuff like that. I mean, if you look at game times back when we played, we moved right along. I mean, I always had the goal, like, when I'd go out there, I wanted to get out of the inning as a starter in 12 pitches or less. So to do that, you had to go out there and throw strikes. And I was always like a goal of, if I'm going to be out there, I got whatever 2.5 minutes of warm-ups, and then I want to have the inning over in like 3 minutes. It was, so my philosophy was work quick. And I always try to teach kids, if you work quick, the hitter doesn't have time to think about what you're doing to him. He's just got to react to your stuff. And I think that's helped. I think that helped some of the pitchers this year with that pitch clock. And I heard they're going to move it down a couple more seconds even. So be interesting. The only thing I really don't like is the throw overs at first. I don't think that's fair. Other than that, I think as far as the pitching side goes, I think the pitch clock's really good.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the throw overs, I think that is kind of, I get it because pitchers can throw over there a lot, but you are taking away a dynamic of the game by limiting how many times a pitcher can throw over.
So I'm not sure the bigger bases made any impact on anything last year either.
I don't think so. I forgot about that actually.
I never thought of it.
And then I think one last question here. I think I did want to ask you about pitch counts a little bit because watching the video, you pitch against Baltimore, I think you mentioned it, you were at something like 140, 145. And you even said like Lou was thinking about leaving you in. Today, in baseball, a pitcher's at 95 and you can see the managers already stirring in the dugout a little bit. And I'm all for, we're trying to protect pitchers and preserve, so they can pitch longer. And I think that is great. But do you think there is any correlation there with lower pitch counts? Their careers are going longer. What's your take on that stuff?
I don't know if careers are actually really going longer or not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really look at like when Verlander came up and Scherzer came up, the pitch counts weren't really in there that much. Those guys were throwing 120 pitches a game and stuff like that. I think my opinion is your body gets to adjust to what you're going to do. And that was always like, it all starts in the minor leagues when they talk about they have strict pitch counts for these kids down there because they don't want them to get hurt and stuff like that. But they're not building anything up. They're not building the stamina. They're not letting their arms not working as well as it can. I mean, I've seen more injuries now than I saw when I was playing, and some of it has to do with we had better mechanics. We had, and we focused on mechanics more than these guys, they talk about throwing harder and stuff like that. And I talk to hitters that are still playing the game and they'll go up and watch a guy throw and they go, they're not throwing any harder than we threw back then. They're just measuring it different.
Interesting.
I mean, I will say that I definitely miss the good old days where it was kind of considered like it was kind of cool to see someone pitch so many pitches. Like, yeah, this guy pitched like 100-something pitches. Like he really put his heart out there, but we don't really see it anymore. And unfortunately, we have a Mariner right now named George Kirby where he was actually complaining about his pitch count when it was going into the 7th inning, and that actually got Roger Clemens to kind of call him out on it. So I definitely personally miss the good old days of 90s and 2000s baseball personally. So I'm not a pitch count fan myself. And we can all, and like you said too, that more pitchers have gotten injured than they did before. And I mean, I don't know what else, what else other could be the cause, but my theory is I think when your body's just not used to pitching a little bit more and then when you're pitching a little bit more, then the body, I think, kind of freaks out. But that's just me. Like, most I ever did was Little League baseball and softball. So I can't really say too much personally. And Trident, you got anything else left? Because that was our final question.
No, just once again, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on. And I remember watching that game 3 in 97. Me and my dad watched baseball every summer together. And, you brought us a lot of joy. So, little things like that, it does, it makes a difference. That was a great summer, for me as a kid. So thank you for coming on. It was a pleasure. And thank you for some great memories as well.
No problem. It was fun. Enjoyed it, guys.
And
thank you.
Yeah, Jeff, once again, also thank you for also being on this show. And also thank you for being part of the 97 through 99. And hopefully maybe sometime after this show, more Mariner fans will start to catch on and feel nostalgic about Game 3 of 97. But if Mariners won, maybe there would have been some kind of memory where we see it in the Jumbotron a lot, like best Mariner moment, and maybe Jeff Fassero's Game 3 could have been there. And I guess my one final question would be: have the Mariners reached out to you since 99, since you retired, about doing like a ceremonial first pitch, or do you expect them to give you a call someday?
No, I've never received anything like that from them. I don't know if I'd ever receive a call from them like that. They have a reunion day down here in spring training, but I've been gone pretty much every time they have it. But they sent out a letter, and I'm not sure when it is this year, but I want to try and go because there's a few guys I want to see, like Jay and Danny and Edgar.
Gotcha.
Definitely.
And do you have any close contact with any of the Mariners from 97 to 99?
Jamie Moyer, he and I still talk quite a bit. We still do stuff. Our kids do stuff with their family their kids still.
Oh, cool.
So we still, the Moyer family, we are still pretty close with.
Oh yeah, Jamie Moyer pitched all the way till 50, and I definitely can't take that away from him. I mean, he was definitely a favorite pitcher of mine growing up with his
Yeah,
off speed.
same.
He did it without a fastball, but basically.
pretty much.
Yeah,
Three
absolutely.
different changeups.
Yeah.
One of them was called his fastball.
It was so famous. It actually got into a commercial where Dan Wilson used that changeup to distract the hitter, and it worked.
Yeah.
Well, that's gonna do it for all of us. And Mr. Fassero, thank you very much for being on this show, and
Thank you.
and everyone, thank you very much for tuning in. And once again, when you get the opportunity, hit the like button, subscribe, hit that notification, and everyone have a good night and go Mariners.